Everybody, please welcome Mr. Dakota Beatty. He's the Biking and Pedestrian Safety Coordinator for the city. So let's give him a hand.
My name is Dakota Beatty.
How you spell that?
It's D-E-K-O-V-A. And the last name is Beatty, B-A-T-E-Y. And today we're going to be learning bicycle pedestrian safety. Okay. So did everyone see? Okay, so the things we're going to talk about today, we're going to go over the bicycle laws that we have in our state. We're going to talk about safety while riding your bicycle, communication, which is a very key factor with cycling, as well as bicycle maintenance, just a quick checkup every time you ride your bicycle. And lastly, where to ride your bicycle and where to park. So to begin, we're going to go over the bicycle laws that are in Florida, what they are and how they pertain to you. Just to let you know, the Florida statutes contain our bicycle laws. They're in the motor vehicle section, chapter 316. So these are the bicycle regulations, and if you would go to the Florida Senate website, you would have this type of layout. So we're just going to go over the bicycle laws, and number one law that you need to know when we talk about bicycling in Florida is that the law says on roadways, bicycles are vehicles. They are actually considered the same as those trucks or cars that are on the roadway. They have the same rights and responsibilities as other vehicle operators. So here's a design, what we call Share the Road. The Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Board advises our commission and some of our local transportation officials develop this design. And you may see this around. We haven't did any bicycle bumpers, car bumper stickers or t-shirts lately, but we may be doing this soon. And this is promoting that not only are roadways for automobiles, but they're also bicycles that are using the roadway, as well as pedestrians. And you have other uses as well. You may have farm equipment or animals or what have you. But the roadway is something we need to share and all take responsibility in. So we're just sharing information with you. So again, bicycles are vehicles. That's number one. So the important thing is when you're riding a bicycle, you need to follow certain laws. You need to know how to operate safely so you stay alive, and that you also can be in safety, but also that you can be legal. If you don't follow the laws, you can't be cited for certain things. So we're going to go over that. One of the number two regulation in the bicycle regulations is that you must have an attached seat while riding. And so most people would say, well, of course you would have a seat while riding your bicycle, but just realize people make their bicycles, especially young kids, they may throw a bicycle together, the seat may be damaged or what have you, and they'll try to ride or what have you, but the law says you need a seat. And basically when we're talking about these laws, put yourself in the mindset of automobiles as well. So if you were driving a car without a seat, that would be unsafe. Same thing with your bicycle. Now this is important because with our technology now, bicycles are made for convenience as well as transportation. They're made as a transportation tool as well. So what they've done now, seats will allow you to have a better fit, comfort on your bicycle. So just like if you're in a car and you adjust your seat, you can do that same thing with your bicycle to give you a better fit or better control of your bicycle. And so now what they did, they've had devices, sorry about that, they've had devices, what they call quick release, where you can adjust the seat. And this will also allow you to remove the seat very easily by pulling the lever there. Now, before you may have to get tools and do some heavy manual labor, a little bit of labor to get that seat adjusted or to get that seat off. Well, now people can just readily go to your bicycle, take off your seat. So that's something you need to be aware of when you're parking your bicycle in public places for a long amount of time, the library or other places. A lot of people take their seats with them because they're a very valuable commodity, and especially if you're on the bicycle for a long time, that seat comfort level is very important. So make sure you be aware that people can't take your seat, so you may want to take your seat if you're going to have your bicycle parked unsecured, or people not being able to supervise it for a long amount of time. Another law says bikes can only carry the number of persons it's designed for, and the basic thought behind that is one person per seat. Now today, because you have all type of bicycle products, such as pegs, people use this right here to do bicycle tricks and different things, but also people are using them to carry people. I don't know if you can see, but people stand on these pegs so that someone can carry them, but that is against the law. You're supposed to have one person per seat. So though you see people riding on handlebars and different places, the law says one person per seat. And think about it, even if you're in an automobile, if you have 4 seats, 4 seat belts, but you can fit 6 people in that vehicle, even though you can do it, is that safe? And so, is it legal as well? And that's the thing you need to think about with cycling. You may be able to put a person on the handlebar or put them on the pegs, but is it safe? Is it legal? And so one person per seat is the thought behind that. Now there are ways that people can ride more than one person per bicycle. You do have different products, bicycle carriers for children. You have tandem bicycles, more than one bicycle built to fuse together. You have bicycle hitches. You have all kind of carrier seats and different products that are produced to allow more than one person per bike. So these are ways that you can legally ride more than one per bike. The law further states that children who are under the age of 4, under 40 pounds, need to be in a child carrier seat, and it's one that's produced for that purpose. Children may not remain in that seat unsupervised. You have to be in immediate supervision of the child if they're in one of these seats. So that is a violation if you don't do that. The law also says children under 16 must wear bicycle helmets. I think a couple of years ago, they got all the counties to kind of fold into this law. There was a couple of counties that were not in appliance or not in agreement with this law or not allowing it in their counties, but I think now all of our successive counties have this law. But under 16, you must wear a bicycle helmet that's properly fitted and fastened, and that has been approved by ANC, the American National Standards Institute, CPSC, the Consumer Product Safety Commission. So these are helmets that are approved and are safe. You can be issued a citation, or you can be issued a brochure from crossing guard or law enforcement, or a citation from law enforcement if you do violate this law. Now locally, you may not, it depends on the different law enforcement agencies, what their focus is. I know I've done projects in other counties where you do have law enforcement that if you ride to school as a child and you don't have a helmet, they will cite you. You will get a ticket. So, or citation. So, just realize this is a law that can be enforced. Also, sorry if y'all can't see this very well, but another law under the bicycle regulations is that a bicycle rider may not attach to another vehicle while moving on the roadway. And again, this is a safety issue, and some people do this with rollerblades or what have you, but it is against the law. Also, cyclists who are not keeping up with the flow of roadway traffic must use a bicycle lane that's present or ride as close as possible that's safe and practical on the right-hand side of the curb or edge of roadway. So bicycles ride on the right. That is with the flow of traffic. That is the law that bikes must ride on the right with the flow of traffic. If there is a bike lane present, you have a question?
Yeah, so they're riding a bike, no bike lane. They're riding a bike in the right-hand lane, in the middle of the lane. Okay.
Well, it depends on interpretation of whether. Okay. So his question is, if you have no bicycle lane and a cyclist is riding in the middle of the lane, okay, and it depends on if you're impeding or impeding the flow of traffic. If you're not able to keep up with the speed of traffic, and depending on certain bicycles, they may be equipped to keep up with certain speeds. On campus, 20 miles per hour You know, that's easy, but in highways, yeah, in highways, if they're impeding or stopping the flow of traffic, and there is a bike lane present, the way the law kind of reads, if you ride two abreast, you may not impede the flow of traffic. But the way we have here now, they made a law now where you have to be in the bike lane if it's present, so that you don't impede the flow of traffic unless you're overtaking someone, you're going around them, you're passing, you're preparing for a left-hand turn, or you're avoiding a danger, something in the roadway that you have to avoid. So basically, you're not allowed to impede or impact the flow of traffic. If so, you need to be to the right, as safe as possible, or in that bike lane. And a lot of this is up to interpretation of the law enforcement officer as far as, you know, what they will cite. And then that's up, you know, to the judges of what they will actually enforce at that level. Another law says cyclists on a one-way road with two lanes or more on traffic for one way may ride as near to the left-hand edge of road or curb as possible. So that's an opportunity for you to ride to the left when you are on a one-way road where there's multiple lanes. Bikes riding two abreast, as we talked about earlier, side by side, may not impede the flow of traffic. So if you have traffic coming here and cyclists are traveling less than the average flow of traffic, the cyclists need to ride in a single file to allow traffic to go around when it's safe. They have to make sure they give 3 feet clearance before they can pass, or they need to wait until they have that 3 feet. So everybody has a responsibility. Everybody has, you know, safety to consider. And so, again, get in a single file line to allow traffic to go around if you're not able to keep up with the flow of traffic. Or if there's a lane available for vehicles to go around, they may do so. And you may ride side by side if you're not impeding the flow of traffic. Again, that's up to interpretation. Bikes operating from sunset to sunrise must be equipped with a front, rear light, and reflector. A white light in front visible from 500 feet, and a red light in back visible from 600 feet, as well as a reflector. Reflectors, as you may know, if you have vehicle lights shining, that sparkles on that reflector and bounces back to the driver to let them know you're near. So it's very important that you have lights and reflectors, white in front, red in back. No different than an automobile, white in the front, red in the back. And again, that's anytime it's dark from sunset to from sunset to sunrise. Also, there is a law that no parent of a minor may authorize or knowingly allow that child to violate the laws that we have here. So parents need to make sure their children wear helmets if they're under the age of 16, make sure they're riding on the right-hand side of the road, making sure they're following the law. They may not allow their child to violate these laws that we have. Also, when you're on a sidewalk, a bicycle is considered a pedestrian. So on the roadway, the law defines a bicycle as a vehicle. Same rights and responsibilities as cars and trucks and other operators. On the sidewalk, the law defines the cyclist as a pedestrian. So they have the same rights and responsibilities as people who are walking on the sidewalk. And so the difference with that, in the roadway, you have stop signs, you have stop signals that you must obey. On the sidewalk, just like a pedestrian, you don't have to, stop. If there's no stopping for the pedestrian, you can go. The issue is at intersections, crosswalks, what have you, as a pedestrian, you want to be careful operating as a bicycle at those intersections, because a lot of cars expect sidewalks to have pedestrians, so they don't expect the cyclists to operate, to move as fast, and they don't expect to have to respond as quickly to something on the sidewalk. So you need to be more defensive and cautious on the sidewalk. Yes?
Perhaps I misunderstood, but if the, or didn't hear you properly, but if the cyclist is still on the bicycle and
The only difference, if you're on the sidewalk, that categorizes you as a pedestrian.
No, I'm talking about the crosswalk and the intersection.
A crosswalk is a pedestrian facility, so there's still a pedestrian in that crosswalk. So, and that may be confusing to the driver if they're expecting you as a pedestrian to go at a pedestrian pace and you're riding a bicycle, at a faster pace. And so that's why it's encouraged to walk your bicycle, through the crosswalk, because people don't necessarily expect you to, be moving that fast when you're on a sidewalk. So it can be confusing, but crosswalk is a pedestrian facility. Now, you can use, some cyclists will ride in the bike lane and they'll operate as a pedestrian at an intersection. You have that right, or you can change back. It's best to be consistent and predictable and not change up just so that you can, be consistent in your behavior, and that helps you to better flow the traffic. But if you're on the sidewalk, crosswalk, those are pedestrian facilities. The roadway bike lane, those are vehicle facilities. So another law for cyclists, when you are a pedestrian on the sidewalk, you need to yield to pedestrians. The law says you have to yield to pedestrians and give an audible signal that you're coming. So let them know coming from behind, or use a bicycle bell. We have a bicycle bell ordinance that's been on the books for a while, not necessarily enforced, but it's encouraged. So we do have people who complain because they'll be in a wheelchair or crutches and someone comes up and startle them or kind of brush them to the side. And the law says a bicycle must yield the right to the pedestrian. So that is important, and you give an audible signal before you get close to them so that you don't startle them. No skates, coasters, toy vehicles, or similar on the roadway except for crossing in the crosswalk, which is a pedestrian facility. So when they say toy vehicles, some vehicles, because of their engine or motor or what have you, they don't meet standards to be a vehicle or what have you. I think some ATVs, certain types of devices aren't necessarily allowed on the roadway or sidewalk. They have to be on a private location. But you're not allowed to have anything except a vehicle on the roadway unless you're using the crosswalk. As far as something that's operating. Also, brakes are required on your bicycle. Just as you have car requirements, you have requirements for your bicycle. You need to be able to stop within 25 feet from 10 miles per hour on dry level pavement. You don't have brakes, you can't control your vehicle, you're breaking the law. And there's a lot of bicycles now that's made because of certain trends without brakes. And it's just important that you do have brakes, that you can control your vehicle, just because things come that you don't plan. You have crashes, you don't plan them, they just happen. Retailers shall not sell bicycles unless they have identifying numbers that are permanently stamped or cast on the frame. So you need to have some type of serial number to indicate your vehicle.
That reminds me of something. I've seen people that have a little tag, it's almost like a car tag on their seat, on their bikes.
And like a license plate type
Like a
of?
license plate.
There may be different type of decal systems. Sometimes there are other type of tags. Actually, we have some today, bicycle tags that you can put on. But there are decals and etchings where you have a serial number that's specific for that bicycle. And I know University of Florida does it, as well as Gainesville Police Department. They have not a decal system, but you can go online on the Gainesville Police Department website, enter in your bicycle information so that they can store your serial number. So
But
these,
that's not required.
not at this time. These are just programs where you can use it in case. And what they use it for, especially at UF, is if someone takes, or GP, if someone takes it to steal your bicycle, take it to a pawn shop, they'll be able to check that and try to stop that transaction. And that does happen quite often. So it's very important that you register your devices. If you're not affiliated with UF, go to the Gainesville Police website on the main page, and right there they have bicycle registration. Go and put your information in so that you can have that in case someone steals your bicycle and tries to take it to a pawn shop. Or it can be tracked. The law also says no one may rent or lease a bicycle to someone under the age of 16 unless the child possesses a bicycle helmet or the person renting or leasing provides a bicycle helmet. Also, failure for a person to wear a bicycle helmet or failure of a parent or guardian to prevent a child from riding a bicycle without a helmet may not be considered evidence of negligence or contributory negligence. Except where otherwise provided, a violation of this section is a non-criminal traffic infraction punishable as a pedestrian violation, such as in Chapter 318 of the statutes. Law enforcement may issue a traffic citation for subsection 3 or 15 only if it occurs on a bike path or road, not on private property unless it's for public purposes of vehicle traffic. So there are certain standards where you can't use it. And so this is just encouragement, no headphones, iPods while you're riding your bicycle. I think they allow for one earbud, but just as when you're driving an automobile, you don't want to limit your hearing because that is a very important part of being safe and operating your bicycle the right way. So now just have a little quick section on safety while riding your bicycle, how to keep yourself safe. One thing is you want to make sure if you're driving an automobile or a vehicle, you want to make sure you allow 3 feet if you're doing any passing of a bicycle. If you're not able to give 3 feet, you want to wait until it's safe to do so. And for most lanes, it's about half a lane space or so. For cyclists, you want to make sure you ride in a straight line, be predictable. You don't want to be wavering or weaving or being inconsistent with your travel. Be consistent with the roadway path because, again, that will allow others, when they're driving, they're taking cues from what you're doing. If you're slowing down, if you're speeding up, if you're turning, that's a cue to other drivers, just as if you were in another vehicle. So make sure that you're consistent on your bicycle. Make sure you ride on the right-hand side of the road. And again, be predictable. Also, be very careful when you're riding at intersections, at turns also. Riding up right behind a vehicle sometimes could put you in a blind spot so that this person may not be able to see you right here out of their window. You may not be able to pay attention to the blinker if they don't have one on their mirror. And if they're making a right-hand turn and you don't realize it and you're right behind them, you could have a conflict. So you want to be very careful when you're riding a bicycle. Vehicles that are getting ready to turn or what have you, make sure you kind of fall back a little bit so they can see you out of their rearview mirror, or if you have time, make sure you go up in front of them so you're placed in a place that's more visible for your safety. Also, we talked about sidewalks as well. Sidewalks are locations where sometimes you may be more invisible than you think for the traveling vehicular traffic in the roadway. On the roadway, a lot of the vehicles are really concerned with trying to get in and out of their lanes. They're trying to be concerned with turning, and they're looking at conflicts that are on the roadway. So a lot of times, they may not pay attention to what's on the sidewalk, especially if it's coming faster than what they usually expect a pedestrian to operate. So when they're coming out, instead of them paying attention to the person who's probably closest to them, their focus is, do they have a gap where they can get in traffic? They may pay attention more to the person in the roadway or bike lane before they pay attention to the person on the sidewalk, which is, very unfortunate, especially if you have shrubbery or different things that impact the view or your vision triangle. And so, again, when that vehicle's coming out, if you're on the sidewalk and you're riding a bicycle, be very careful at intersections, driveways, alleys, because those are places where people most of the time do not look for you, or there are obstructions that allow you to be kind of hidden, unfortunately. So be very careful on sidewalks, and you may have to slow down at intersections and driveways because those are huge conflict areas. I meant to bring some papers for this exercise here. Basically what this was, you have a piece of paper in front of you. It has a cyclist on one side and not on the other. And if you were to cover your right eye, they have a seat there. Oh, okay. Actually, I had this diagram right here on that paper. But you can still try it when you get home. You put a square and then a dot right next to each other, just like that. And if you hold that, if you cover your right eye, and you hold the paper up to your eye level, arm's length away, about the time you get halfway here, if you're focusing only on that dot, the square on the left-hand side kind of disappears. It's a blind spot. And it's just to show you, even though some people see you, they may not see you. And adding to that, people are distracted, they're using a cell phone, they're addressing issues. So a lot of times, you're putting yourself in a lot of risk if you assume that people see you. You have to communicate. You have to make sure that you not only communicate, but make sure you address them in case they're distracted. And so here, as you see, it's kind of really hard to see or make out anything. A lot of times, this is how we get around in our community, walking or biking. Whether you're going to a shopping center or something, or going to work, or going to school, in your neighborhood, this could be your area of walking, and you're competing with no light, no visibility. So it's very important that you wear bright colors. Use safety vests, retro-reflective material. These are available at Lowe's, Home Depot for about $10, but if you go to Family Dollar, Dollar General, they have shirts and different materials that are like $3 that have high visibility to help keep you safe. So as you see, it's hard to see at night if you don't have lights, but you have safety vests and reflective material, it helps stand out. Very important. Be seen. Even if you're walking, use flashlights, blinking lights, or bright colors. You don't want to wear dark colors, you want to wear bright colors because it makes you invisible when it's dark and you're wearing dark colors and you have no lights. Make sure you have lights and reflectors. Communication, when you're on your bicycle, you have to communicate. You need to definitely talk to other people who are driving, other people who are walking, so that you can be aware of what they're doing, but they can be aware of you as well. So make sure you make eye contact. Don't assume they see you. If they have tinted windows and you can't see through that tinted window, allow them to go ahead. Make sure you wave your hand or do something, because they may be looking at you but be distracted still because they're listening to a radio, or they're on a phone call that's may not be on the phone, but maybe they're doing speakerphone, and they may look as if they see you, but they don't. So be very, very aware that you have to sometimes break their attention. Use hand signals. So if you're riding your bicycle, if you're turning to the left, they made it simple, just point to the left with your left hand. Keep your right hand on your handlebar, and your left hand, you extend it to the left. If you're making a right hand turn, you extend it to the right. Now, some people know the traditional way of a right hand signal, which is just to extend your hand up. And so this is still a valid way to indicate a right hand turn, because if you're in an automobile and your blinker out, you still have to do this. So again, left hand turn, you point to the left, right hand turn, you point to the right. And so if you're doing this, make sure you make eye contact before you act on those turns.
Yes. I have a question for you about the safety gear.
Okay.
And this came to my mind because the motorcycle riders, some with common sense. Why aren't cyclists required to wear glasses so if bugs get in their eyes or something, they won't, have an accident or something like that?
I guess a lot of
Some kind of goggles or something, because you're riding along and, like you said, something flies up and hits you, or,
a lot of the laws, sometimes you have lobbyists or different ones who promote that, or a lot of people are working against laws or adding more laws of safety because they say it's just your right to ride how you want. Cyclists may not be riding as fast as motorcyclists, so you don't have as much of the impact as a motorcyclist who would have a greater velocity meeting that bug or what have you. But as a lot of times, as experience goes and you have issues, people will adapt to what works. So if they need to, that's something that they will make sure they address. Yes. Okay, so the middle picture is our stop signal, and basically they're putting their hand down to the ground. And I call this the kickstand sign. If your body is a bicycle and you were using your kickstand, and your kickstand is on the left-hand side of your bicycle, and you point to the ground, when your kickstand is down, your bicycle is stopping. So basically, this is a kickstand or a stop sign. And basically, it's an about to stop sign because you want to signal this before you get to the stop sign to let them know I will be stopping. So when you're riding, you want to first signal that you're stopping by doing your kickstand sign, hand down on the left side. And you don't want to put it close to the body because they may not see it. You want to make sure you extend it out. Some people may not be able to make that angle, so if you're not, you can point to the ground. You may want to wiggle your fingers when you signal, but you want to definitely make eye contact, make sure you're aware of what's going on. So again, before you get to the stop sign, do your stop signal. If you're turning left, right, make sure you make eye contact. So if you have a left turn, a right turn, and then this is a stop or slow down signal, pointing to the ground with your left hand. Okay, so just a little ABCs of bike maintenance. Check your air. If you have low air, look on the side of the tire. It'll tell you how much pressure to put in that tire. If you're riding your bicycle on low air, just as an automobile, you have some disadvantages. You aren't able to ride as fast with low air. It can affect your steering. You can damage your wheel, and it causes more energy, more work to pedal that bicycle when you have low air. So there's an incentive for making sure you have good air in your tires, just as you waste gas or you utilize more gas if you're an automobile. Brakes. You want to make sure you have good brakes. As we said before, there are laws and standards. 25 feet, you want to stop at 10 miles per hour on dry, level pavement. You don't have brakes, you're breaking the law. You can crash, you can't stop, and you don't control your vehicle properly. So just make sure you always check your brakes, make sure that's working. And when you use your brakes, if you have your handlebar brakes, you want to make sure you're applying them evenly. If you only apply your front brakes, your bicycle will tend to flip you over. So when you're applying your brakes, your handlebar brakes, you want to make sure or any brakes, kind of lean back to distribute your weight so that you don't have a tendency to flip over. And then you want to make sure you check your chain, make sure it's free of debris, make sure it's cleaned off, well oiled and lubricated. Also your crank where your pedal area is, make sure that's not loose. If so, the pedal area can fall off your bicycle. I've had that happen years ago. So make sure that you are just checking to make sure things aren't loose and shaky. They need to be in good and solid, a good fit. So check your crank and your chain so that you can keep pedaling and moving your bicycle. Your crank falls out, you don't have pedals to move your bike. Your chain falls off or breaks. You don't have a mechanism to also maneuver your bicycle. Where to park and ride your bicycle. Make sure you pay attention to signs. They are definitely important, and you can be impacted by these signs. One of the things is each city may have their own indication of whether you can ride on the sidewalk. That's up to the municipality. Here in Gainesville area, we can ride bicycles on the sidewalk in public areas. Some cities will not allow it, so you have to know what that particular municipality allows. Private property, a lot of times, do not allow it. So you go to Walmart, you go to Publix, they'll indicate no bicycles on sidewalk. Liability issues for their business. So just know the different area you're in. When there is no sidewalk available, if you're walking, you want to walk on the left-hand side of the road. If you're biking, again, always bike on the right-hand side of the roadway. And a lot of people were taught different, especially cycling. They were taught to face traffic. Yes, you have a question about that? Right on the right. Now, if there's a one-way street and you have more than 2 lanes, and it's one way, you can ride on the left. But you always ride on the right. Basically, you're doing the same thing as any other vehicle would be doing on the roadway. So if you're in another country, of course, things are different. But here in the U.S., you're going to ride on the right-hand side of the road always. If you're walking, face traffic. And it's easier for the other vehicles to estimate and to ride with the flow as a cyclist if you're riding on the right-hand side of the road. If you're walking, you're going a lot slower, but if you're riding your bicycle, you're going, faster than average. And just like an automobile, if you're riding behind that automobile, you can tell if they're slowing, if they're, going faster, kind of by, how you all pass the same object, the time spacing between that. And you also can tell if they're weaving or if they're doing certain things. If you go in the same direction, it allows you that opportunity to interpret. But if you're going different directions, it's a little harder. So it's best if vehicles are traveling in the same direction so that they can operate in unison. So where to park your bicycle? Make sure you do not park your bicycle blocking the road, the sidewalk. You want to make sure there's access for people who may be in wheelchairs, children who may not need to or be able to safely go out into the roadway. So make sure you do not block access with your bicycle. And if there are signs that say no parking, make sure you obey that because you can be impacted by those signs. So be careful parking your bicycles near places where people are trying to access. Where to ride? You want to ride, there's different opportunities for where to ride. Some people prefer on the roadway, some people prefer on trails, off-roadway. Here in Gainesville, we're just introducing bike boulevards, and these are areas that will have bicycle signage, indication on the roadway markings to let you know that this is a roadway that has lower traffic volume and accommodation for cyclists, and it actually allows more of encouragement for cyclists to use that facility. Also, you may have video detection for cyclists to allow those traffic signals to change, as well as bike boxes. Northwest 12th is our current bike boulevard, and so this is an alternative to 13th Street. So starting up near 19th, across from Gainesville High School, on 12th, just east of 13th Street, going south all the way down near Depot, near PK Young. This is a roadway that has more encouragement for cycling. So again, you'll see these markings, you'll see signage, you'll see roadway markings, you'll see video detections and other type of things to encourage people to use the roadway, because 441 or 13th Street, there's lack of right-of-way in certain areas to put bike lanes. So there are bike lanes in certain areas, but for the majority of the part, there is no bike lanes, a lot of heavy truck traffic. So this is a good alternative. So bike boxes, which you'll find one on southwest 2nd Avenue on 13th at 13th Street. So it's just a block south of University and 13th, where that intersection is. Just south of there, the entrance of the University of Florida. Right across from there, there's a bike box. And this basically allows cyclists to gather in front of the automobiles to give the cyclists priority once the light has changed and to green. So at this type of treatment, you don't want cyclists to gather near or behind the cars. You want them to be up prominent so they can be seen. It's a way to be more safe and seen for the cyclists. So it's not for the cars to take that green space, it's for the cyclists to gather. Also, we have roundabouts in our community. Just to let you know, when riding a bicycle, you can choose to ride on the sidewalk through the roundabout. And when you ride on the sidewalk in the roundabout, you do have a section where you cross not into traffic. As a pedestrian, you cross away from the traffic, and you're only crossing one lane of traffic at a time, and you usually have a pedestrian refuge in the middle of after crossing each lane. So it lessens the conflict that you have in crossing. So if you're riding on the sidewalk, instead of mixing in with traffic, you just cross one lane of traffic at a time, pedestrian refuge, cross the other lane of traffic, and then you keep crossing until you reach your destination. If you ride in the roadway as a cyclist, usually if there's a bike lane leading up to that roundabout, it will allow you to either continue as a pedestrian or allow you to stay in the roadway. And when you're a cyclist in a roundabout, you actually take the lane. Roundabouts are treatments where the traffic is supposed to be slow, and so you can, instead of stopping, you yield, and you stop if necessary, and you yield to those who are already in the roundabout. Now, most people say, why do we have a roundabout? It's confusing. It is a learning curve. We have to do a lot of education outreach. But what happens when you have the traditional T intersection, the regular intersections, there's many different, about 16 at least different type of opportunities for crashes because of the different angles that you're maneuvering in a regular T intersection. Those opportunities are cut in half in a roundabout because everybody's going the same direction. Traffic is supposed to be slower, and that depends on the design of the roundabout, whether they have different curving to prevent people from being able to just ride through. So in a roundabout, people are supposed to slow down, not just be able to zoom through. They should have to, it's maneuvered where they have to actually slow down and go around safely. So you could stay in the lane, you would take the lane, and in the roundabout, you would be in the middle of the lane as a cyclist. And you don't have to use your blinkers because everybody's going the same direction, and you just make your exit whenever you need to. I think there is a discussion now for a 2-lane roundabout coming up, so we'll see about that. Lastly, where to park your bicycle. When you park your bicycle, make sure you do not lock your bicycle up by the tire. And the reason why, it's kind of the same because of the seat. You have a lot of quick release tires now where people can, you have a lever that you can pull up, and it's a way to easily change your tire if you need to. People can remove your tire, and then they'll have your bicycle and the back tire, and all they have to do is get a front tire, and they'll have their mode of transportation. So instead of locking your bicycle up by the front tire, you want to make sure if you have a quick release tire, remove it and line it up with the back tire. And you want to lock up both tires and the bicycle frame itself. The U-lock is suggested as a good lock to use. People are using all kinds of materials now to cut bicycle chains and different type of locks, but this is suggested as a good bicycle lock to use. And you want to make sure, again, you're locking the frame of the bicycle and, if possible, also the tires together. And so that is our bicycle safety presentation.